Go. Every election we are told, this is the most important election ever. This election night will change things forever. They were right. Nothing will ever be the same after that fateful Tuesday night. I think that I am now destined to live in darkness. Walking home from my 5 o'clock political science class, my mind raced. The wind was gusty and the sun had set. I thought about many things. I wondered whether a red wave was really about to sweep the country, and what a massive Republican win would mean for the future of the United States. As interested as I was in the political possibilities that could soon unfold, the truth was that I was even more interested in grabbing a bite to eat. Tired and hungry, I couldn't wait to eat and go back to the apartment to relax and watch the election coverage. After I stopped in the dining hall on campus and gorged myself, I returned to our apartment building. When the elevator stopped on the 8th floor, I got out and walked to our apartment. The smell of bud and cigarette smoke wafted up from the bottom of the door. As I unlocked the door, the music of the Beatles mixed with the sound of the election coverage on TV. My roommate, Justin, apparently started the election party while I was in class. There he is! Hey y'all, my roomie is back. Give Tommy some love, said Justin as he took a shot of rum. Welcome to Toasty Tuesday, Tommy, the room full of revelers yelled. The expression on my face must have betrayed the annoyance that I had intended to conceal. Take a seat, buddy, and have an audience with Lord Morpheus, said Justin as he handed me a lighter and a tobacco water pipe. Morpheus was the name that we had given to the giant smoke water pipe whose base was shaped as a tiger's head. I don't know. I just wanted to relax, have a few drinks, and watch the election coverage, I replied. Bro, I'm basically a doctor. Take your medicine. This will chill you out. Just enjoy the night, Justin responded as he poured some cola into a glass of rum. A gorgeous dark-haired girl with pale blue eyes sat down and squeezed herself between Justin and I, snatched up Morpheus, and said, I need some medicine too. Sweet dreams are inhaled from these. After she inhaled her medicine, a cloud of smoke billowed out from her mouth as she looked into my eyes and passed the medicine over to me. Her icy hot blue eyes seemed to pierce into my soul. Without thinking, I took the water tobacco pipe into my hand, the pretty stranger lit it, and I inhaled deeply. It was as though I had been compelled to take a hit from Morpheus. My eyes instantly felt dry and my body melded to the couch and to the strange girl that sat beside me. Morpheus had indeed worked his magic and relaxed me. Including Justin and I, there were 7 people in our home. Of the 5 visitors, I only recognized 2, Bill and Sarah. The 3 additional girls were unknown to me. While all 3 ladies were attractive, it was the dark-haired beauty next to me that captured my attention. She looked as though she had jumped out of a magazine. I didn't know her, and I wanted to change that fact. The news anchor declared that the Democratic challenger had just been projected as the winner of a highly contested Senate race in Pennsylvania. The room erupted in applause. Bill's girlfriend Sarah and I booed, as we were the only conservatives there. The beautiful stranger next to me asked, You're a conservative? Guilty as charged, I answered as I turned my head away from the TV to face her. But why? Ever since the previous Republican president refused to admit that he lost the last election, their party has gone insane, replied the pretty stranger as her eyes grew wide. Well, yeah, I'm not into the conspiracy nonsense, but I believe that the conservative ideology and platform are leaps and bounds more sane than that of their liberal rivals, I responded as I shrugged my shoulders. So you think that conservatives are more sane than progressives on ideology and issues? Do you think that the Republican Party has a compassionate and reasonable position on LGBTQ plus issues? The beautiful stranger asked as she waved her left hand. More or less, yeah, I answered. Man, we have a lot to discuss. I could use a drink, she said as she pushed her long black hair away from her eyes. What would you like? We have beer, wine, and rum, I asked as I rose to my feet. If you have some red wine, I'd appreciate that, she answered. After I poured us both some wine, we continued our conversation. The beautiful stranger said, Republicans habitually simplify complex realities into binary categories. They often boil things down as if virtually all issues are black and white, cut and dry. Some things are binary. Gender is one such thing. I can't change my chromosomes any more than I can turn into a bat. This wasn't a controversial position until recently, I responded as I took a sip of my wine. She gave half a smile and replied, I'm sure you've heard girls categorized as tomboys, girly girls, or a mix of both. I'm equally sure that you've heard guys labeled as alpha males, beta males, girly men, or macho men. Those are outdated labels given to different categories within a gender. Gender deals with roles within constructs created and established by societies. Far from being binary, it is very nuanced. I exhaled sharply and said, I've never thought of it like that before. That's very interesting. You've given me something to think about. I'm still hoping that there will be a red wave tonight, though. The beautiful stranger placed her right hand on my left leg and said, We'll have to work on that, but you might get your red wave after all. The news anchor announced that a Republican, who was well known for following conspiracy theories, was projected to have won her re-election to the House of Representatives. I remained silent while nearly everyone else booed. Justin snapped his fingers in front of my face and said, Earth to Tom, are you with us? I've been asking you a question for a couple of minutes, and you seem to be lost in another world. Oh, sorry. We were just having a conversation. What's up? The Village Fool is having a special on pitchers of beer, and they've got the election coverage on. Do you all want to come with us? Asked Justin as he put on a long-sleeve shirt. Nah, not tonight, man. It's been a long day, and I have my English Lit class in the morning. I'd rather have another drink here, watch the election news, and relax. Maybe I'll go outside for a bit and check out the blood moon later, I answered as I stretched my shoulder. The beautiful stranger gently poked my arm and asked, Do you mind if I hang out here with you for a while? I pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and replied, Not as long as you don't mind my smoking and changing the music. The beautiful stranger took out a cigarette and replied, That depends on what kind of music you put on. I told Siri to play The Doors. Break On Through began to play. The Doors? Oh, kick ass! They're one of my all-time favorite bands. Jim Morrison is a legend. Their music has an eternal sound to it, said the beautiful stranger as she took a drag from her cigarette. Everyone else left. It was just me and my mysterious new friend. I exhaled a big puff of smoke as I held a cigarette in my right hand and asked, Who are you? What is your name? The beautiful stranger danced to the ethereal sound of the Doors and said, I'm Athena. When the slower-paced Crystal Ship began to play, Athena grabbed a bottle of wine and walked on down the hall. Tom, come here! My heart beat faster as I slowly walked on down the hallway. The door to my bedroom was open, and the soft light from my candles warmed my room. I see that you've discovered my room. With the wine bottle in her left hand and a candle in her right hand, Athena leaned over and looked at my book collection and said, "As I suspected, you're a fan of Stephen King and Anne Rice." "How did you know that I was a fan of theirs?" "You're Thomas Wolfgang, and I admire your work." "How do you know my last name?" "You admire my work." "What work are you talking about?" I asked as my voice became a little shaky. "Yeah, I know who you are, and I'm an admirer of your work. You're a great storyteller. I subscribe to the Vampire's Graveyard," Athena explained as she continued to inspect my bookshelf. "Oh, right. My YouTube channel. I didn't know that you knew about that," I replied as I took the wine bottle from her and took a big swig. "Yes, I know about your work. That's why I'm here. I wanted to meet you," she said as she straightened herself into an upright position. "I'm really flattered. I only have around 400 subscribers, so I never would have guessed that you were familiar with my work," I replied. "Your heart is racing. Relax. I won't bite without permission," Athena said with a smirk and a glimmer in her eyes. Athena pulled her crimson hoodie over her head and dropped it onto my bed. The tank top that she wore said, "Vampires do it by the look." Athena sat on my bed, pulled the ashtray closer to her as she lit another cigarette. She inhaled deeply and said, "So, is this where you do your work? Is this where the magic happens?" Sitting down next to her, I lit a cigarette and said, "Yup, this is where I write and narrate my stories. Which of my stories do you like the best?" Athena took a sip of wine and said, "Prisoner of the Vampire is my favorite. I love horror, and you really brought a gruesome vampire to life in that one." I reached for the bottle of wine, took a drink, and said, "Ah, so you prefer scary vampires over the seductive, romantic vampires." Athena leaned closer to me and responded, "No, not quite. I actually find both frightening and irresistibly romantic vampires to be totally killer." As I gently placed my right hand on her left hand, I said, "I've been fascinated by vampires for as long as I can remember. There was a time when I was depressed on account of a skin condition that I suffered from. I'd go for a walk at night and call out to particular vampires from the Vampire Chronicles. I desperately longed for one of them to turn me and take my pain away. Who wouldn't long to live in a body that doesn't break down? Who wouldn't want to live where death could no longer touch you?" Athena clasped my hand and said, "I know. I completely understand. Such a thing really would be a blessing. The experience of being a vampire is something that is nearly indescribable and difficult for mortals to comprehend. The life of a vampire isn't all gothic romance, though. A vampire is destined to live in the darkness of the night. Such an undead existence can be difficult and lonely at times. Vampires have to wear a mask at all times when they venture out amongst humans. They must always keep their true nature hidden. Imagine what it would be like, for the sake of survival, to be forever required to dress in a costume and pretend to be someone or something that you're not. Perpetual method acting would be necessary in every interaction, friendship, or relationship with mortals. Some vampires lose themselves in the roles that they play, forget who they were, and go mad. The vampire is not welcome in human society. Imagine being banished into a virtual non-existence. Vampires are the ultimate outsiders. After taking another drink of wine, I replied, "Wow, I've never thought about the life of a vampire in quite that way. It's not that I haven't briefly considered what it might be like for such a being to have to live on the margins, but I never really grasped the totality of it. While I can empathize with feeling different, feeling rejected, and feeling alone, I do have the refuge of my family. My family has always accepted, supported, and loved me. A vampire, on the other hand, might not have something akin to the safe sanctuary of a family. Such a tragic and profound loneliness saddens me just on the thought of it. I suspect that a vampire's life would have additional hardships. Athena took the bottle of wine from my hand, raised the mouth of the bottle to her red, luscious lips, and said, "What kinds of additional difficulties do you imagine that a vampire might face living in a human's world?" With my thumb, I gently caressed the space between her pointer finger and her thumb as I answered. It occurs to me that even if I feel like I'm alone on account of my skin disease, or because of some of my unpopular beliefs, all I have to do is perform a quick search on the internet to find out that I'm not alone. A search on my internet browser will undoubtedly yield a variety of articles, videos, or podcasts wherein people share their struggles with the very same thing that I'm struggling with. Yet, if I were a vampire, I would not enjoy any such support, nor would I be able to find an online community to commiserate with. How could that not add to the melancholy and the severe sense of isolation? Even as the vampire is eternal and passes through the centuries, he is divorced from human society and its progress. As an observer hidden behind a mask, the vampire is, in essence, a ghost that walks through the ocean of time unseen and unknown. Forever is he fated to observe history, but not to be remembered by it. Forever is the vampire marching towards a future that he isn't permitted to shape. I would imagine that these paradoxes could drive any rational being to madness. Athena tightly clasped my hand, and with her other hand she gently brushed my dirty blonde hair away from my eyes. My heart beat faster as I felt the blood rush toward my face. As her gorgeous eyes opened wider, I gazed deeply into them. Quickly, I found that I had lost myself in the depths of the pale blue ocean of her eyes. I felt like I was swimming in the deepest, most mystical sea. I wanted to stay here forever. Then she leaned in towards me, closed her eyes, puckered her bow-like lips, and kissed me. I kissed her back. It was magical. This amazing, beautiful young woman had quickened my soul. As Athena gently touched my cheek with her nose, she said softly, "This is why I came here. This is why I chose you. When I listened to the stories that you wrote, I knew that you had a gift. You have a very special ability to really see inside of people. Your ability to see the world through the eyes of people who see the world very differently than you is a rarity. It is especially an extraordinary gift in times such as these. You don't merely sympathize with others, but you somehow seem able to empathize with people that have experienced things that you yourself never have. Your mind is sharp, and your soul is lustrous." With my right hand, I gently moved my fingertips over her shoulder and down her arm. Her skin was perfect, although very pale and cold. As I caressed her, I said, "It is you who is special. You're the most beautiful lady that I have ever laid eyes on. More than that, you are brilliant. You are mysterious in the most irresistible way. You breathed life into my soul. My heart flutters for you, and I yearn for your mind to embrace my mind. Athena, you are intoxicating. You inebriate me." Athena whispered into my ear, "I have a gift for you. I want to give you my bod. I greatly desire to bestow upon you my baptism of darkness." After I breathed out deeply, I replied, "Forgive me if I don't understand. Is that some kind of role-playing thing?" Softly, she answered, "No, the baptism of darkness is no game. It is the gateway to eternal life. I am immortal. I am a timeless vampire, and I am here to answer your prayers. Do you want to live forever? Do you want to join me and walk with me in the forever night?" I pulled back and answered, "Sure, if vampires were real, I might just take you up on your offer." Suddenly, she grabbed the top of my pants with her left hand and raised me high off of the bed. I was speechless. While I was 6 feet 2 inches tall and 225 pounds, she was 5 feet 5 inches tall and couldn't have weighed more than 115 pounds. Yet she had effortlessly lifted me up toward the ceiling with one hand. She opened her mouth wide, and 2 fangs descended from her upper jaw. My heart raced with excitement and fear. "Thomas, I really am a vampire. I honestly have no intention of harming you. I won't force the baptism of darkness on you. It is a true gift that is offered to very few people. The choice is yours, handsome," said the pretty yet horrifying lady as she gently placed me back on my bed. "Okay, I believe you. You really are a vampire. I can't believe that this is happening. Before I give you an answer, I'll have to ask some questions if you don't mind," I replied as I lit another cigarette while trembling slightly. "Of course, ask away," said the real live vampire in my bedroom. "I'm Catholic. Will I still be able to practice my faith if I become a vampire?" I asked as I took a drag from my cigarette. "I suppose that you could do so, with a few restrictions, of course, if you so wanted. Crucifixes don't hurt us. There is a special crucifix-like weapon that uses crystals and acts as a laser, but no one has wielded that weapon for ages. You wouldn't be able to go to the church in the daytime for obvious reasons, although I am not aware of any reason that you couldn't continue to practice your faith. I'm not convinced that you'd want to, as you learn the secrets that we possess," answered Athena as she joined me in lighting a cigarette. "Would I lose my soul? Are vampires cursed?" I questioned her. "If I was really soulless, how could I have free will? Since my body is technically neither dead nor alive, some type of spirit must be animating it. I am much older than I look, and I can tell you that I've never seen any reason to believe that I've been damned. In fact, some of us, rather than viewing what we are as a curse, see it as a blessing. The devil does not control me. I am as free as you are in making choices. If you join the Dark Dynasty, I think that you'll come to find that being a vampire is a blessing. I'm sure that you've prayed to have your skin disease healed and taken away. Obviously, your prayers haven't been answered up to this moment. I can smell the sickness that afflicts you. I can promise you that I can take your sickness away. I can heal you and grant you perfect health. Indeed, I promise that if you enter into the baptism of darkness, that you'll never become sick by disease again. You'll never grow old, and you'll never die from aging or bad health," the mysterious vampire explained to me. "That sounds great, but in my experience, there is always a catch. I mean, if something sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. Never seeing the light of the sun again, and never experiencing the warmth of the daytime sounds an awful lot like being banished to dwell in darkness," I replied as I took a sip of my wine. I can see why you might think that, but I believe that it's all a matter of perspective. Maybe the light isn't the unequivocal good that most assume that it is. The rays of the sun can cause cancer. Its heat can dehydrate you. While people see the sun as the source of light, they are often blind to its dangers. The sun can cause terrible deaths. The light is often harsh, cruel, and unrelenting. It is the light that scrutinizes all imperfections. Any blemish of the skin is highlighted by the light. The light leaves no room for privacy. It offers no place to hide. The darkness, on the other hand, is comparably very merciful and meek. The darkness offers respite. It does not burn your flesh, and it will not extinguish life. While the light highlights individuals, scrutinizes differences, and forces individuals to stand out, the darkness allows us to blend into it. The dark of night envelops us in a blessed unity. The nighttime is not evil. Living under the soft glow of the moon and stars is certainly not a curse. It is, in fact, a blessing to live under the glory of the night sky, Athena explained as she smoked her cigarette. You frame things in ways that astound me. You cause me to reflect on things that I would never have questioned. This next question is crucial. Will I have to kill people in order to live? I asked as I exhaled smoke. No, it isn't necessary to kill anyone in order to feed. You will need to drink blood, and you will delight in doing so. Neither alcohol or any drug can rival the pure ecstasy of consuming warm human blood. You could feed off of animals as well, but human blood is far superior. You will learn how to compel people, and you will simply take a harmless blood withdrawal from them. Drinking from them will not even hurt them, because our fangs can inject them with a painkiller that not only numbs the area of the bite, but also offers them a euphoric feeling throughout their body, explained Athena as her eyes glimmered. What about my family? Will I be able to retain my relationship with them? I love them very much. I refuse to abandon them, I firmly said. Yes, you'll be able to continue your relationship with them. I wouldn't ask you to give up everything for me. I'm not a demanding monster. However, you will first need to learn how to manage your lust for blood and your vampiric powers. I will teach you how to be a vampire. I will teach you how to die and be born again, said Athena as she held my hand. This all sounds so crazy, but my answer is yes. You are absolutely extraordinary. I want to be what you are, and I want to walk the night with you for eternity. Athena put her cigarette to her lips, inhaled deeply, and said, So you desire, and so it shall be done. I will baptize you in darkness. I will gently sink my teeth into the flesh of your neck, and I will take your sweet blood into me until you have nearly no blood left. You will feel the euphoria of my dark bite. Then I will slash open my neck and place your innocent lips on my open wound. You will drink from me as I drank from you. As you freely offer me the life of your blood, so shall I freely offer you the life of my blood. My blood will taste more exquisite than anything that you've ever tasted before. You will be inebriated from my dark blood. Then you will die. You will briefly feel shocked and anxious, but it will pass soon. Then my vampiric blood will quicken you and raise you to your new and forever life, further explained Athena as she gently pushed me down onto my bed while gazing deeply into my eyes. Once again I swam in the pale ocean of her beautiful eyes as I breathed my last breath as a human. Athena did everything precisely as she had explained that she would. That Tuesday night of elections was truly the most important night of my life. I would never be the same again. If I live another 2,000 years, I'll never forget the night that I joined the Dark Dynasty. I look forward to my vampire life and walking under the light of the moon with the intoxicating Athena, who, with her blood, baptized me into darkness and immortality. My first night as a vampire. Written and performed by Tony Capobianco. Good evening, bloodbags! Welcome to Podcast of Vampires. I am your immortal host, Thomas Wolfgang. Do you think that vampires are real? You should. Undead immortals walk in the shadow of darkness. A vampire could be in front of you at the coffee shop, or beside you at the movie theater, or perhaps behind you as you walk outside at night. A powerful, blood-drinking super predator could be right beside you, and you wouldn't even know it. Perhaps you're wondering how I know these things. Truth be told, I have a confession to make. I am a vampire. I wasn't always this way. I became what I am when I met a beautiful and mysterious lady named Athena. She sought me out and she made me an astounding offer. The irresistible woman offered me her bod, baptism of darkness. I accepted her supernatural gift. With her dark blood, Athena baptized me into darkness. In my bedroom, on my bed, Athena gently penetrated my skin with her fangs. 2 sharp teeth injected me with chemicals that locally numbed the area of the bite, while pumping euphoric drugs into my bloodstream. Ecstasy flowed through my body like a warm river of pleasure. As the intoxicant flooded my body, I wondered what it was going to feel like when this vampire drug had worked its way to my brain. The rush made me feel warm, safe, and happier than I had ever imagined possible. Suddenly, I sighed deeply and loudly. The chemical had finally reached my brain. It was an explosion of pleasure. The slurping sound of Athena lapping up my blood seemed like a sensuous yet aggressive song. I felt her long black silky hair as it brushed over my face, shoulders, and chest as she moved. I'll never forget the sensation of her skin as it pressed against my flesh. Her pale skin was cool and soft, but yet firm. In what seemed like a paradox, my senses somehow seemed heightened yet obscured. Every sensation in my body became apparent to me. I had tremendous clarity of all the details of my immediate surroundings, but everything a few feet away from me seemed to have melted away. The more excited that I became, the more my heart pumped blood, and the more that my heart pumped blood, the more it rushed into Athena's thirsty mouth. With my blood dripping down her delicate chin, Athena slowly pulled herself away from my neck and said softly, "If you think that felt good, wait for what's to come." The room began to spin. My limbs felt heavy. I don't think that I could have moved no matter how hard I might have tried. Mind you, I hadn't tried to move because I was exactly where I wanted to be, in Athena's arms. My weakness and dizziness were the result of one fact. I was near death. My vampire lover had drained me of almost all of my blood. My heart struggled to produce a weak beat. I knew that unless Athena kept her promise to me, my heart would go to sleep once and for all. My life was in her hands. I trusted her. As weak as I was, I watched Athena use her fingernail to slash open her neck. Blood ran down her neck and onto her bosom. She lifted up my head and placed my mouth to the open wound on her neck and said, "Drink, my beautiful love. Drink. Drink me in. Let me flow through your veins." The first drop of her blood on my tongue was a revelation. Just one drop of her blood awakened me. Weak as I was, as near death as I was, I knew that her blood was my strength and my life. I began to suck on her neck to pull her dark blood into my mouth and down my throat. Her blood was oh so warm as it sprayed the roof of my mouth. It felt warmer still as it flowed down my throat and into my stomach. Her vampire blood tasted like a delicious, rich and creamy hot white chocolate infused with notes of peanut butter. I sucked harder and harder to ensure that her sensational, life-giving blood kept pouring into my mouth. Never before had I tasted anything as delectable as this. Athena sighed and moaned with pleasure as I drank from her. Athena's blood didn't merely taste amazing. It was indescribably intoxicating. Moments before, I had thought that the substance injected from her fangs into my bloodstream while she had fed upon me was the best feeling ever. I was mistaken. As awesome as the euphoria from her vampire bite was, it paled in comparison to this new euphoria. Her blood gave me pure ecstasy. While the vampire's bite had sent a warm river through my bloodstream, ingesting her vampire blood had unleashed a tsunami of euphoria throughout my whole body. I felt as though I was swimming into the moonlit sky. Not even mortal lovemaking could rival this magical experience. No type or amount of alcohol, nor any drug, could even approximate the unbridled and unadulterated pleasure caused by her dark blood. Athena calls it the blessing of dark euphoria. Athena and I floated to the ceiling as we shared our eternal embrace. As her mouth-watering blood flowed into my mouth, the world disappeared. Everything around us faded away until only the two of us remained. For those precious moments, we were the entire universe. I held infinity in my arms, and her name was Athena. I longed to stay in those moments forever. With my lips latched to her seductive throat, I drank and drank. As I drank her essence into me, I grew more and more inebriated. The pleasure was so immense that it overwhelmed me. It was like a supernova of pure euphoria and joy. Unable to sustain this acute experience any longer, my heart pounded like a drummer performing an epic drum solo. Then, my life flashed before my eyes. I saw my mom and dad as they put me to bed in my crib. Next, along with my dad, I was at our very first house as it was being constructed. I smelled the fresh paint and I felt the joy and excitement of anticipating moving into our new home. Then I was in elementary school and I could smell that the classroom had taken on the smell of lunchboxes filled with sandwiches and snacks. Half a moment later, I was sitting at my family's kitchen table on Christmas Eve. The table was filled with family members that had long since passed away. Like a dream, I was next taken to the moment that I shared my first kiss with a girl named Stacy. Next, I was at the first party that I had ever been to. It was the first time that I had gotten drunk. Finally, I saw a tunnel with a brilliant light at the end of it, and as I began to walk down the tunnel, darkness enveloped me. Everything went black. I had died. Athena told me that I had been dead for 13 minutes. When I opened my eyes again, my world had changed. The first thing that I saw was Athena. Through my vampire eyes, she looked even more beautiful. Her pale blue eyes appeared more vivid and more vibrant. Her pale, smooth skin was perfect. I could see the tiniest details in her dark hair. It seemed as though I was seeing her as she truly was for the very first time. I desired to study her for hours, but I knew that there would be plenty of time to do that in the future. Now it was time to explore the world with my brand new vampire eyes. The flickering candle on the end table beside my bed captivated me. I saw additional colors that I had never seen before, and I didn't even have names for them. The light of the candle was far brighter than it had ever appeared to my human eyes. The dancing flame seemed mystical, almost spiritual. Often had I wondered what it would be like to see the world through someone else's eyes. I had even pondered what it would be like to see the world as a cat sees it, or as a bird sees it. Never did I think I'd ever actually be able to see the world apart from my eyes and the eyes of my imagination. Now, after my baptism into darkness, I was remarkably able to see the world through different eyes, through my new vampiric eyes. It was glorious. Things were similar yet different. It was as though a veil had been lifted, and for the very first time, I could see things as they really were. The Tuesday night in November, when I was blessed with the baptism of darkness, happened to be the night of the blood moon. Athena suggested that we go outside to look upon the blood moon, so that I could witness it with my new dark sight. We went up to the roof of my apartment building to view it. As the lunar eclipse began, a beautiful red glow started to appear on the moon. The red color was fuller and sharper than any shade of red that I had ever seen in the past. I could see details in the moon that I would have required a telescope to see when I was mortal. The beauty of the lunar eclipse was astounding. Athena held my hand as we watched this spectacle of nature. A fireball streaked through the sky. It was a shooting star. My dark eyes could not only see the red of the streak in greater detail, but they could also track the movement in a superior way. The fine detail of each particle of light looked as though hundreds of fiery fairies were racing through the black sky. The night was getting very late, and the break of dawn was drawing near. Athena suggested that I go with her to her place to sleep. She had an extra coffin for me to sleep in, and she insisted that it would be safer for me to sleep the day away with her. I agreed. As we walked away from my apartment to her house, I noticed how much better I could see at night. We had no need for a flashlight. We could see everything perfectly well. With our vampire sight, the nighttime was no longer a black blanket throughout which nothing could be seen. Rather than total darkness, we saw a soft light that surrounded everything. Once again, I was astonished. I could see the true beauty of the night. The darkness was no longer something for me to fear. I came to perceive that darkness wasn't the black void that I had been conditioned to believe that it was. Darkness is often associated with death, but for me, it brought life eternal. People often associate darkness with pain and suffering, but for me, it brought pleasure, comfort, and healing. As Athena and I walked in the darkness, I observed something miraculous. The terrible skin disease that afflicted me since puberty was gone. Hidradenitis suppurativa, or HS, is the name of the rare but vile skin disease that I had suffered from. It is an inflammatory skin condition that often produces lumps and boils, some of which never heal. It is a painful affliction that causes physical, social, and mental suffering. I, like many others with HS, had kept it private. It is not the kind of illness that I or anyone else wants to talk about. It's one thing to talk about asthma, stomach disorders, immune disorders, or various other internal illnesses, but it's quite another thing to speak about HS. At times in the past, I would yell at God in anger, shame, and frustration. I had prayed unceasingly for Him to take the HS away from me, and it was a prayer that He never answered. Tormented and exhausted, I'd cry out about how boils were a punishment that the Bible says God sent upon the Egyptians as punishment in the story of Moses. I lashed out about how I was suffering one of the 10 plagues of Egypt. But my torment was far worse, because HS is a lifelong illness with no known cure. In the book of Exodus, there was a reason for the suffering, and I'd ask God why I deserved this biblical plague. Living with HS, if indeed you can call it living at all, is at times terribly physically painful, but always psychologically and spiritually agonizing. We who suffer from HS often live our lives in isolation. The symptoms of the sickness aren't something that people would be likely to share unless it was part of a horror story, maybe even a body horror story. Infected hair follicles become inflamed and, in acute cases, can transform into baseball-sized boils filled with putrid pus. The skin is then stretched to such an extreme extent that the pain becomes absolutely excruciating. The suffering is compounded by the placement of the boils. HS often causes painful lumps and boils to grow in places where skin rubs against skin. These pus-filled growths invade the armpits, the groin area, and near the buttocks. I called these disgusting, uninvited guests aliens. Calling them aliens sounds so much better than boils or cysts, doesn't it? I thought that the nickname was most fitting. Like an invasive alien creature from another world, these lumps seem to gestate, grow, and then erupt out of the flesh. During a severe bout of HS, any and every movement causes pure agony. In such acute outbreaks, there is even pain when you lay down in an attempt to find some brief relief. When it's that bad, over-the-counter pain medication is of no use. Then, after a week or so of excruciating agony, the boil bursts. The built-up pressure of the pus chamber stretches the skin as far as is possible, and then it rips an opening through the surface of the skin. Like a foul-smelling magma, the pus flows out. The smell made me gag more than once. I am sure that you understand why I never confided my struggle with aliens to anyone outside of my immediate family. It's not exactly the kind of thing that comes up in everyday conversation, and it's most certainly not the kind of thing that you talk about around the dinner table. It's an embarrassing illness. It's a hellacious disorder that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. Many times, in my agony, I'd cry out to the heavens. What did I do to deserve this illness? Am I destined to live and die alone? What girl would ever want to be intimate with me and spend their life with someone who suffers from such a repulsive disease? If you can take this cross from me, why don't you? Does my torment please you? Why did you create me just to endlessly suffer? If all life is sacred, as your church teaches, why is there so much unbearable pain? Why do you confine your children to painful prisons of debilitating disease? Why must so many of us dwell in hell on earth? Why won't you answer me? Then I'd think about how numerous children suffer and die with cancer and other natural diseases. It all seemed so incredibly sadistic. I know that my drinking and my drug use has been my attempt to self-medicate. I wanted to be numb, even if only for a short time. I wanted an escape. I wanted to hide from the physical, psychological, and spiritual torment. Naturally, when I had discovered that Athena's dark blood had completely healed me, I was ecstatic. She took my pain away. The baptism into darkness was the answer to the prayers that my God had seemed to ignore or reject for years. Athena was my dark angel. She sees me for who I really am, and she was and is the answer to my prayers. She took my illness away. She saved me from pain, sickness, and death. My beautiful dark angel gave me a new and eternal life. Walking hand in hand, I contemplated all of these things. Weightless is how I felt, knowing that I was no longer destined, against my will, to suffer hell each day. A heavy burden had been lifted. I had been liberated from my hellish prison. All of the possibilities that laid before me seemed endless. A peace and happiness filled me. It was a sense of well-being that I hadn't felt since childhood. In fact, this newfound happiness surpassed any happiness that I had ever known. I was living a sweet, undead dream. Athena and I smoked cigarettes as we continued to walk towards her house. The cigarette tasted similar, yet different to the way it had prior to my rebirth as a vampire. The smoke was smokier and more pleasant. While I no longer needed to breathe in order to live, I discovered that I could breathe, or perhaps simulate breathing if I desired to do so. When I inhaled the cigarette smoke, I could keenly sense it as it passed through my lungs. It was an enjoyable sensation. I smiled as I thought to myself, "These things can't hurt or kill me anymore. No more death." The night had gotten chilly, although not yet freezing. The cold did not trouble me. Although I could accurately feel the temperature, I was not cold or uncomfortable. Athena stopped in her tracks, squeezed my hand, and said, "Come, quick!" Like a silent wind, she ran up to the yellow house to our right and effortlessly forced open the door. I ran right behind her. I was amazed at how fast I had run. I ran with such speed that everything around me seemed like a blur. All I had to do was will my body to get to a destination quickly, and the desired result was nearly instantly achieved. It was truly remarkable how effortless it was. It was surreal. I had sprinted far faster than humanly possible, and no heavy breathing followed. As I approached the yellow house, my nose detected an irresistible smell. It was the smell of human blood. It called out to me. I wanted it. More than that, I needed it. It smelled better than the finest restaurant. As I followed Athena into a back bedroom, I saw that there was a dead body on the floor near the window. A young and pretty brunette had been murdered. Her throat had been slashed open. Her blood bathed the floor around her. Two young and pretty girls were tied up on the bed. Their mouths had been gagged. Their eyes were opened wide in sheer terror. Two men in ski masks held them captive. One man, the shorter one, pointed a gun on them, while the other man held a knife to the red-haired girl's throat as he ripped open her blouse. The man with the knife said, "We're gonna have a good time. A real hell of a time." Athena gave a stone-cold glare to the murderer and said, "Indeed, we are going to have a hell of a time." The two attackers must have thought that we had materialized out of thin air. Startled, each of the assailants took a step back. The shorter man with the gun pointed the gun at Athena and said, "Ooh, looky here. Another hot slut joined our party. Get on the bed with the other sluts. We're gonna ravage you and the other two whores while we force your pretty little boyfriend to watch." I took a step toward the assailant with the gun and said, "No. You pieces of human excrement have it all wrong. You're not in charge anymore. The darkness has come for you." Two loud bangs reverberated through the house. The short rapist had shot me twice in my chest. I felt no pain. I had merely taken a step back and smiled, revealing my sharp vampire fangs. Then I rushed towards him like a flash of light. I forced the gun out of his hand and I crushed it with my bare hands. I had become exceptionally strong. I proceeded to lift him up off of the floor and manhandled him like a rag doll. The taller man with the knife began to take a step toward me when Athena launched him across the room and through the wall. Athena untied the two helpless girls and looked into their eyes and said, "Forget the details of our appearance and just get out of here. Call the police." I continued to toy with the short, filthy criminal. Athena then looked at me and said, "Babe, it's time to break your cherry. Feed on him, but don't kill him. We'll tie these two up and leave them for the police after we're done with them. Now we feast." Athena flew on top of the tall man and tore into his throat. She slurped up his blood. I followed her lead. I forced the little man close to me, and I sank my teeth into his neck. The hot blood flooded into my mouth. Its flavor surpassed anything that I had ever had before. It is impossible to describe how fantastic human blood tastes to a vampire. While there is no way to precisely describe it, I can say that it resembles the taste of hot, melted, salted butter. Yes, human blood was reminiscent of hot, melted, salted butter infused into the tastiest lobster. Think of the taste of your favorite food and then multiply that pleasure and taste 100-fold. Neither Athena nor I injected the numbing substance or the dark euphoria when we bit these pieces of walking trash. We wanted them to feel powerless as we manhandled them and took their blood. The way that the rapists struggled to break free from us only heightened our pleasure. It was ironic that the predators had become our prey. They knew that their lives were in our hands. They knew that they were at the mercy of the darkness. The world around me disappeared as I greedily gulped up his delicious blood. All that remained was me and my prey. A bloodlust rose up inside of me like a hurricane. I desired to drink every last drop of his blood. A blood-fueled feeding frenzy took hold of me. The sound of his frantically pounding heart further increased my dark frenzy. His heart began to slow down. Athena firmly grabbed my shoulder with her pale right hand and said, "Enough. That's enough. You don't want to kill him." I forced myself to pull away from the murderer's throat, glanced at Athena, and replied, "But why? More than anything, I want to drain him of every last drop of his blood. I want all of his blood." Her silky black hair fell over her eyes as she knelt down beside me and responded, "That's the bloodlust talking. You aren't thinking clearly. You don't want to take his life. You don't want to be a killer. That's not who you really are." My eyes, turned red by the bloodlust, grew wider as I said, "But they deserve death! They broke into this house, murdered an innocent girl, and were about to rape and murder the other girls. Rapists and murderers are monsters! They don't deserve to live! I want to devour their blood until their hearts cease beating." Athena kissed my forehead and said, "Truly, they are monsters. They do deserve to die, and they probably deserve worse than that. However, I know that taking a life will weigh on you. We live in an age where prisons are plentiful. They won't be able to harm any more women where they are headed. Existing in a prison may well be a worse fate than death. This is a human matter now. Let the justice system deal with them, and if the system fails in this case, then we can repay them a visit." I nodded my head in approval and then kissed her luscious lips. Our blood-covered lips embraced for 60 seconds or so. Rising to our feet, we tied the monsters up and left them for the police. Then we activated our vampire speed and ran out of there. We stopped running after we had gotten a good distance between us and the scene of the crime. A 3-story, blue colonial house came into view. It was Athena's home. We went inside and discussed many things before we went to sleep. Right before the sun arose, Athena led me down into the crypt that could only be reached through a secret passage in her bedroom closet. A large dark red coffin rested against the far side of the chamber. Red and black curtains adorned the walls. A garnet-colored silk canopy draped down and enshrouded the dark red coffin. It was Athena's coffin. A large navy blue coffin sat across from Athena's coffin. The blue coffin was adorned with the engraved image of a snake coiled up within a full moon bathed in crimson. Athena lifted up the lid of the blue coffin, and I climbed in and lay down. Athena kissed me and then closed the lid. I slept the perfect sleep of the undead. Are vampires evil parasites? Written and performed by Tony Capobianco. Since I, Thomas Wolfgang, came out as a vampire, the followers of this podcast have asked a lot of questions. I'll address the 2 most frequently asked questions by the audience. The most popular question was, are vampires evil? The second most popular question is the one that I'm going to respond to first. Are vampires parasites? The short answer is yes. Vampires do seem to be parasites. We do drink the blood of other species, including the blood of humans, in order to sustain our immortal undead life. Before I more fully address this question, please permit me to ask you a question. When I just said the word parasite, what came to mind? Did you visualize anything? If so, what was it that you saw? Which words popped into your head? I suspect that your answers will echo my sentiments on this. As a new vampire, my mortal way of thinking is still very accessible to me. Only a few months ago, I was a mortal man. As a mortal man, I perceived parasites to be creatures that were inferior. More than that, the mere mention of the word parasite held a very negative connotation for me. I associated that term with words like bad, slimy, invader, unnatural, disgusting, repulsive, and dangerous. Images of creatures such as leeches and tapeworms slithered into my mind's eye when the name parasite was uttered. Although my reaction to the word parasite was probably a pretty universal one, was it justified? What is it about parasites that evokes such a visceral response in humans? When I say the word predator, what comes to mind? What words and images arose upon hearing that term? For me, hearing the name predator makes me think of carnivorous dinosaurs, lions, tigers, bears, wolves, sharks, and humans. It's a name that I associate with the natural order of the world. Words like strength, speed, and evolution come to mind. Predators fascinate me and inspire me to want to learn more about them. I admire their beauty and deadly power. Isn't it strange how two creatures, parasites and predators, stimulate such varying responses? Both types of organisms can be deadly to humans. Therefore, the repulsion of parasites cannot be solely explained by the threat of danger. Something else has to be at play here. Could the human attraction towards predators and repulsion of parasites be attributed to a more ancient psychological tendency? We are often attracted to that which is similar to us. Contrariwise, we are often repulsed by that which is different from us. Humans, being apex predators, share much in common with other predators. When people look upon a lion as it stalks and kills its prey, they may be seeing a part of themselves in the big majestic cat. When a person calls a vampire a parasite, negative connotations abound. Sometimes people call vampires predators. Interestingly, when the latter term is used, a fascination rather than disgust generally ensues. Are vampires predators, or are they parasites? The answer is yes. Vampires can play the role of either a parasite or a predator. For your self-preservation, you had better pray that any vampire you encounter is playing the role of parasite when you cross its path. For if the vampire played the role of the predator, then you would become the hunted game. A vampire can live off of human blood without killing the person. The idea of being a host for a blood-drinking vampire may make you recoil in disgust. Perhaps the thought of an undead immortal sinking their teeth into your throat and lapping up your blood causes your skin to crawl. If that is the case, remember this. We vampires have the ability to choose. We could choose to be the predator, kill the mortal, and drain him of all his blood. Or we could choose to be the parasite and take a safe amount that won't harm the person. In fact, I argue that vampires can, and indeed have, formed a mutualistic, symbiotic relationship with their human donors. How can this be? Everyone knows that the vampire needs blood in order to sustain itself, but did you know that humans receive a benefit from the vampire? It's a fact that the bite of a vampire increases a human's immunity for a period of time. After being fed upon by a vampire, the person's immune system becomes so strong that it temporarily becomes immune to all viruses. A pandemic could be raging all around you, but if you recently allowed a vampire to feed from you, then you would be protected from the deadly disease. Think about that. Think about being impervious to Ebola, Marburg virus, hantavirus, Lassa virus, Junin virus, Machupo virus, dengue fever, bird flu, and bubonic plague. Does such a relationship between vampire and human seem negative? Would you want to receive the immunity that a vampire bite imparts upon its host? Now, let me ask you this. Can you mortals make the same choice with your prey? Can you eat some of a pig or a cow without killing the animal? How gruesome would it be if you sliced parts of a cow off without killing it? You cannot feed upon your prey items without causing them grave harm or death. Humankind, when it consumes flesh meat, must take the life of the creature. No matter how much you might care for an animal, if you desire its flesh, then you must kill it in order to eat it. A mutualistic symbiotic relationship is impossible in such a circumstance. I do not say these things in judgment of your race. My intention is only to open your mind. After all, I was human until recently. It is my hope that you might come to see vampires, not as something repulsive, but as a race that is not so very different than yours. Perhaps a greater understanding of the vampire race will lead humans to jettison old stereotypes and prejudices. Hopefully, you'll come to see that vampires don't have to be seen as scary, evil others. I believe that this brings us to the next question. Are vampires evil? As is the case with most things in this mysterious universe, the answer to this question is complex. Nuance is needed in order to gain an appreciable understanding. For starters, let's take a look at the word vampires. There is more than one kind of vampire. To my knowledge, there are in fact two species of vampires. The Dracunin are one race of vampires. The other race are the Illumidarko. The Dracunin vampires are evil. There are no shades of gray in their wickedness. While it is true that there are considerable differences between the two vampire races, I will not get into those differences this evening. Tonight, in this episode of Podcast with the Vampire, I will answer your questions as they relate to the Illumidarko vampires, because that is the race to which I belong. I am an Illumidarko vampire, and we are not inherently good or evil. Vampires, as is the case with mortals, are often a mixed bag of good, evil, beauty, and ugliness. Much like you humans, we have free will, and it is how we wield our free will that will determine whether or not we are evil. Sentient beings are defined by what they believe and by what they do or fail to do. If some humans have committed murder, does that mean that all humans are murderers? If a portion of the human race is evil, does that make all of humanity evil? Should not the same standard be applied to your assessment of vampires? We, who have been baptized into darkness, are capable of great goodness. Throughout the millennia, many children of the night have not only been virtuous, but have taught mortals how to be more virtuous. Eternal life provides our race with an opportunity to accumulate knowledge and wisdom to a degree that mortals can only dream of. Vampires have dwelt among you since the earliest days of your race. Both species, humans and vampires, have a tremendous potential. This potential, depending on our choices, can culminate in a great and wonderful goodness or a great and terrible evil. The realization of our potential depends on you and me. There is real evil, which lurks in the shadows, as well as in bright spotlights. Even now, as you're listening to me, a powerful evil is gaining strength. It is an ancient evil that seeks to dominate and destroy. The growing threat will annihilate your race as well as my own, if we do not face it down together. The ancient evil of which I speak sows division, breaks trust, causes confusion, manufactures chaos, plants seeds of hatred, and breeds death and violence. This evil army has servants who serve it both knowingly and unknowingly. It's a formidable force that is comprised of humans and vampires. The sinister army is silently growing, and it seeks to overthrow the world as you know it. It seeks to rule over us all. It yearns to bind us in fear and despair. This ferocious force desires to consume us. It intends to blind us with a great light that was first offered as a brilliant gift. The ancient evil is determined to refashion this world in its own image. This evil isn't merely a metaphor. It's a being that is unlike any being that you have ever known. This ancient evil will try to persuade you that all vampires are evil. It will seduce you into a frenzy of hate. It cunningly will use lies to twist the truth. Fear and hate will be the unholy food that it will serve you in an all-you-can-eat buffet. You will be told that vampires are parasites, that we are unnatural, disgusting, conniving, bloodthirsty beasts that have secretly pulled the strings of human history. The diabolical being will strive to convince you that we vampires are responsible for all your misfortune and suffering. The pandemic, war, poverty, and various sufferings will be blamed on us. The ancient evil wants you to hate us, and it will cunningly persuade you to try to destroy us. If I've only been a vampire for less than a year, how is it that I could know such things? Why should you trust me? Aren't vampires nothing more than superstitious myth? If you asked yourself those questions, I applaud you. Critical thinking is a skill that is most advantageous. If you believe that vampires are myths, then I must point out that myths don't talk to you, and yet here I am. As for whether or not I'm trustworthy, think about this. I have taken a real risk by coming forward and publicly confessing that I am a vampire. There is a possibility that you won't believe me. You might laugh at me, or think that I'm mad, or a fraud. It's also quite possible that you might persecute me and seek to destroy me. Yet, I'm taking the risk because I think that doing so is worth it. I am taking the first step on a road that I hope leads to friendship. I have chosen to make myself vulnerable by trusting that your better angels will prevail. In my choosing to trust you, I hope that you will choose to trust me. The reason that I know what I now know about these hidden things is because of my sire. Athena is the vampire that made me into the glorious vampire that you are listening to right now. Athena is an ancient and powerful vampire. She is the queen of the Darko. Thousands of years old, she has accumulated tremendous wisdom and strength. She has fought this sinister being before, and she has defended the human race in the past. Athena has made me what I now am, and has taught me what I now know for a purpose. She has chosen me to walk beside her, and she wants me to warn you of the coming storm. Athena has walked the earth for thousands of years. She has watched humanity wrestle with the natural world as well as with its own nature. Civilizations and empires rose and fell as she watched. She has dwelt amongst humankind in periods of war and peace. She respects and loves humanity. It is her belief that we can avoid a horrific apocalyptic catastrophe if we become friends and allies. The end of days can be avoided if we get to know each other, build trust, and choose to work together. The importance of the question, "Are vampires evil?" should now be evident. Vampires are not evil by nature any more than humans are evil by nature. This question is one of crucial significance. The future of humans and vampires depends upon a real understanding of each other. If we fail to communicate with one another, if we fail to listen to each other, if we choose to live in impenetrable bubbles of misinformation, we will be dominated. The possibility of the extinction of one or both of our races cannot be excluded. The choice is yours. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that I have succeeded in giving you food for thought. What are your thoughts? What do you think of vampires now? Has your opinion of them changed? If so, please tell me how they have changed. Leave your comments, because Athena and I look forward to hearing from you and getting to know you. Feel free to leave questions that you'd like me to answer in the future. The more likes and comments that this video receives ensures that more people will see this video. Share this video and fight the evil apocalypse. Together, we will win. I hope that you enjoyed your stay here at the Haunted Half Moon Inn. The Master requests that you consider supporting me and the inn by becoming a slave. A patron of mine on Patreon. The Half Moon Inn needs your support to keep the doors open. You wouldn't want the residents here to feel forgotten and abandoned, would you? Creating quality scary stories to share with you is very important to me. Running this inn of horror is a passion of mine, and I would truly appreciate your support. The world is hurting. It needs more horror. Help me to heal the world through horror. Together, with your help, we could haunt this world one home at a time. Until next time, always remember, just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they aren't there.